Second. Share. Yeah. So you see only one screen and yeah, good. Okay, we get started. I think the live stream is on, right? Live stream is on. Not able to see that. I hope. I guess so, yeah. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Mrudaduhe Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham tva sarva papebhyah mokshayishyami ma shuchah. Let me just close the windows because the sound is quite a lot. 1 second. Yeah, so we can get. So we are on the 10th chapter where in the first almost 11 verses of this chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, Lord Krishna talks about the unique aspect of God. And here he actually starts to explain about who is really the God in his true essence. You know, he explains about how, and you may recall the examples that I've given from Mundakopanishad, you know, about the spider and the web. You know, how the web was created by the spider by itself, and also the material for the web is also created from itself. So too, how can we understand this God? So this God is by itself or himself or herself, however way we want to visualize, becomes actually both the intelligent cause of creation and also, more importantly, in relevance to our 10th chapter, is the material cause of the creation. And that is a part, where now Krishna is going to elaborate about how that God is the material cause of the creation. So since that Lord is the intelligent cause, when we say intelligent cause, what do we mean? We essentially mean that the intelligence, it is because of God that there is intelligence in each and every being, in each and everything. How does it exist? What is the essence of that being? It is the intelligent cause. So since that Lord is the intelligent cause, we come to know that the fundamental cause, so how do we define this intelligent cause? It is that cause because of which it is. So we come to know that the cause itself is the Chetana, we call the Chetana or the isness. So because the intelligence cause should have intelligence, and to have an intelligence, that being should be a sentient being. That is, a sentient being is someone who has life, has sentiency to the thing, right? So therefore, that Lord being the intelligent, God is a sentient being, and therefore, that Lord being the intelligent, God has actually the omniscience or the skill to create the universe. So that is that God. So God is the one because of whom this whole universe exists. God is the one who has created the universe, but God is the one who is also the material cause of the universe. So all this is what the 10th chapter really embodies. And so in this sense, this aspect of God is actually no different, whether it is Hindu religion, whether it is Islam or Christianity or any religion. God is that omniscience, you might say, or omnipresence, or God is omnipotent, omnipresent. All this is the aspects of God. So this is what the 10th chapter really embodies. So along with this intelligent cause, which I mentioned earlier, and in reference to this beautiful example of the spider in the web, God himself or herself is the material cause because of which we come to know that God has the potential to manifest. So if we only say that God is subtle, we may never be able to visualize or grasp the aspect of God. So God has this potential to manifest as a very universe. And again, a classic example that we can think of is the seed and a tree. So when we look at the seeds, whether it's the watermelon or whether it's the mango or or the grapes, we see so many seeds. We don't even, really understand when we look at the seed that this seed has a potential to create this huge mango tree or, the grapes, shrubs, or, all that. So just as the seed is a material cause of a tree and has a potential to manifest as a tree, so too that Lord has a potential to manifest as this whole universe with all its diversity of trees and beings and etc. And it is this power of omnipotence is technically actually what we call as the Yoga Shakti. So the two words in this chapter, which comes repeatedly on and over again, one of them is the yoga, and the second one is the vibhuti. So yoga is the innate Shakti of that Lord to manifest. So that Yoga Shakti is the one which manifests itself, or the inherent power we also call as a Maya Shakti. And the manifestation of yoga in the form of this entire creation is actually called as the Vibhuti. And so therefore we say that this Lord has both the Yoga Shakti and the Vibhuti by which he manifests in the entire world. So God is the intelligent cause and God is the material cause of the universe. I hope this small introduction to this 10th chapter is clear. We have talked about it before, but I want to repeatedly bring this aspect from the subtle elements of who that Lord is. And this is exactly what was really pointed out in the beginning of the 10th chapter. And afterwards, Krishna says that it is because of this reason a person need not really make a special effort to have the vision of the Lord. Because once we understand that it is that same Lord who is manifested as all the creation, that everything in this universe is actually nothing but the manifestation of that Lord. So whatever I'm seeing, wherever I'm looking, everything I'm seeing is actually nothing but that Ishvara alone. It is that Lord alone. So again, using probably the third example, what I'm doing now, as you know, the first example we of course used was this example of spider and the web, how a spider creates the web by itself when its own. The second one which we used is the seed and the tree. And now the third example, which is probably something which we can easily relate to, is, for example, when I'm seeing a bangle. Now, what is a bangle? A bangle is nothing but gold in a different form. When I see my chain here, it is also nothing but gold in a different form. In and through every one of these forms, it is actually nothing but that gold. So, in a sense, gold is a cause, but the effect is the chain and the bangle, right? So if I can simply grasp this fundamental thing, then now when I look at the entire world, starting with, let us say, the five elements, the Agni, the Vayu, the Akasha, the Jalam, the Prithvi. I'm using Sanskrit words for water, air, space, everything. Starting from there, when I look at it, and it is all the transformation of those five elements which has now created this entire world. Now I can completely try to understand that it is that Lord who I am seeing, who I am experiencing in and through everything that is there. So when I look at this, then I can slowly see how I can, slowly the transformation happens within myself. Whenever we tell our children, you got to be successful, you got to rise high, and you have to be somebody, in a sense, we are trying to transform the child from where he is to where he can be. And that is the same thing for us too. And that is what happens for us. A transformation happens when I start to slowly appreciate that Ishvara as the very source, as a very universe. And this part of it, when I see the transformation happens, when I actually see that Lord as a whole universe, pretty soon we're going to come to the 11th chapter. In the 11th chapter, it is called as Virat Darshanam. And this, we'll see more very effectively. So Krishna basically starts this idea of us looking at this whole universe as this Ishvara, starting from all the way from the 7th chapter. And now he's brought it, he's bringing it more and more closer to us. So fundamentally, if I look at it, what is really my transformation then? So my transformation is that I'm not, I'm transforming myself from understanding who I am, then understanding my relation in this universe, and then looking at the whole universe as, when I start to develop a bhakti for that Lord, I start to see that that Lord doesn't exist only in the temple or in holy places, but that Lord exists everywhere. And so this is the kind of transformation that I slowly get into. And it is really actually a huge transformation. And at that transformation, actually, I become even more and more devoted to that Lord everywhere. And in that transformation, I slowly start to lose my own kind of raga dvesha. We call this raga dvesha, the likes and dislikes that we have. I don't like this, I like this. All these things starts to drop, and I start to develop nothing but love and compassion for the entire world. So that is the biggest transformation that happens. And when that happens, this is where in shlokas 10 of the 10th chapter, where he says, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. He says, I will be there to help you. I will make sure I give you that highest buddhi to come closer to me. I will make sure that your mind is totally fit to receive my own grace and blessings. And at that point, the qualities within oneself also starts to improve. My mind becomes a lot more clear. And this is where he says, Tesham anukampartam aham ajnanam tamaha. I'll remove every ignorance away from you. Nashayam yatma bhavastaha jnanadipena basvata. That beautiful shloka I said, which is the next shloka, the 11th shloka. So this is how Krishna has pointed out that has given us this entire package, if you will, for us to understand really who that Lord is. So 10th chapter is really about truly understanding who that Lord is. So before we come to that part where Krishna now starts to explain about his vibhutis, because as I explained so far, where God is nothing but, the intelligent cause and the material cause, now he's actually going to show us in a material form how that himself is transformed. So anything more to say here or any comments? Anant? Okay. So then last week, we started seeing how, after Krishna had explained this from the shlokas, up to almost 11 or 12, 11 actually. Arjuna, he would have heard just this, of course, at a very high level from Krishna about, this aspect of material cause and the intelligent cause. But, he's still not very satisfied. He really wants to know now about, he's telling Krishna, give me a technique. Give me a technique by which I can be constantly reminded of you. And also, not only I need to be reminded, but I want to be really established in this. It's like, when we wake up in the morning, I gave that example last week too, is, we, as soon as I get up in the morning by sheer force of habit, we tend to do things which probably in this day and age, we can start to calm down. We don't have to look at a phone or anything. But if I can just calm myself down and put my mind into a rhythm, then I can actually start to develop this habit of seeing Ishvara everywhere, right? So in that sense, we need to be constantly be told that this Lord is everywhere. This Lord is the cause of everything. This Lord is really represented or manifested in everything. So we need really a step-by-step approach. And this is where Arjuna is like, wait a minute, oh Krishna, I know you've given me so much of information, but let's take a step back. Now tell me really how this whole thing works. And so his two questions at that point was, hey Krishna, you have given me now this information. Tell me what form shall I use during a meditation by which I shall come to know you for certain? And in what form of yours can I think about you when I'm not in meditation? That is, when I'm acting in this world. So, this is a question that typically comes in all the satsangs too. Tell me how a jnani goes about in the world. What is his reaction? How are his actions in the world? So this is like almost the second last verse where Arjuna is asking these two questions in this thing. Katham vidyam aham yogistvam sada parichintayan keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. So he asks, about the same question. So the word, last time I said, Keshu Keshu is really particularly an attractive one because he really wants to understand, tell me in which of the categories, oh Krishna. I know you must be in almost million categories, you are there, but tell me really most importantly, what are all those categories where I can actually see your glories? And then in shloka number 18, he's again he's again asking the question, vistarenatmano yogam vibhutam cha janardana bhuya kathaya triptarhi shrunvato nasti memrutam. So he says, Krishna, please tell me in detail about, again, these two words, as I said, yoga and vibhutam. He says, tell me again, in what are the areas where I can see your manifestation, your vibhutis, and please do not leave anything. Again, Arjuna, I guess he has all this time in the battlefield, so he's making maximum use of this opportunity to learn from Krishna really what are all those areas, what are all those beings, where can I really see his manifestation? Because it's, listening to Bhagavad Gita, listening to his glories, itself is enough. So that's the thing we saw that. So this was the concluding verse of Arjuna's question. And you will see that Krishna will actually give about almost 71 to 72 of these vibhutis or expressions of Ishvara. And you will see also that most of them are actually drawn from Indian Vedic and Puranic tradition, because that is where Arjuna's background is, right? So he'll be able to easily identify and connect with those examples. And what we will do is we will actually learn. So there is a lot of Puranic stories, Puranic things that we'll be learning in the next almost up to shlokas 38. And we'll try to look for similarities in the present time so that we'll be able to connect with all of them. So in shloka 19, so we see that, Krishna actually starts his explanation of his manifestations. So Krishna potentially could have chosen literally millions of all the objects. It's like for all of us, right? We see that, electricity is manifested in so many different objects, and we are continuously inventing more and more new objects to actually show the manifestation of this electricity, right? And of course, we have all these battery technologies, which nowadays is becoming so popular. The electric cars are becoming popular, very popular. So we could actually keep on listing many of these. But what does Krishna do? Krishna actually takes the best of all these categories in which he has manifested, and then he tries to make sure that the one thing that this is that Ishvara is actually in everything. That is the message that he wants us to get. And so whenever we look at anything, whenever we experience something, the first thing that comes, normally for us, the first thing that comes to our mind is, oh, how beautiful. I mean, whether it is some clothing, or whether it is an architecture, whether it's a painting, whether it is something, something for the what we're eating, for example. Our mind, the way it works is that we will actually focus on that material thing, and we say, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful, or this is so tasty. And, so we attribute our experience to the material. So what Krishna is trying to do here is, having explained this aspect of the fact that God is in everything, he wants us to look for the Ishvara in each and everything. So focusing on, just like, for example, I said, when when I go to an Apple store, or any store in the mall where I see all these gadgets, I get attracted to the gadgets, but I don't realize at the end of it, what is making that thing work is the sentiency of it, right? The energy in it. So how can I just transform my mind? How can I shift my mindset to look at the essence of it, and not get taken away or taken aback by the material aspect of it, which is how our mind is being trained. So it is a shift in the mindset that he wants to do that. So as we look at this list of Ishvara's expressions in the upcoming shlokas here, we may get carried away. We may get carried away by the richness of the stories, perhaps by the mythology, the story, history, etc. But in and through all this, I will try to bring you back to the fact that in all this, it's nothing but Ishvara. Ishvara is in everything. We just celebrated Krishna Jayanti. So it is that Lord Krishna in and through everything that we are seeing. Okay. So let us start with shloka number 19. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Hantate Katayishyami. Hantate Kathayishyami. Divyāhyatma Vibhūtayah. Divyāhyatma Vibhūtayah. Pradhanyatha Kuru Shrestha. Pradhanyatha Kuru Shrestha. Nastayanto Vistarasya Me. Nastayanto Vistarasya Me. So you can see Krishna is, and again, this word hanta, the word hanta has actually three meanings. It can be used to express an excitement. It can be used to express a wonder, or maybe even a slight disappointment. So it is in all this context, the word hanta can be used. So hanta te kathayishyami. So in this context, one can either think about, Krishna is probably thinking, okay, it's already 10 chapters. I've explained so much. Arjuna has still not completely gotten it. It could be that way. Or maybe he must be thinking, okay, if I think about where Arjuna was in the second chapter, boy, he's come a long way. So probably he's, he's really happy about it. Or maybe he is just, wondering, how much more is Arjuna really going to ask? So any one of this could be how we could interpret this. In the book, of course, in our, the green book for Bhagavad Gita, this Swami Chinmayananda said, alas, alas is how he is interpreted, anta. So this word is a kind of an explanation. And so, hantate kathayishyami. So he says, I will now tell you divya. The word divya is actually very beautiful. It's at its best, it's the most divine glories. So, kathayishyami, kathayishyami, aham. So, I will tell you all these divine glories. And Kathishyami Divyahi Atma Vibhuteyaha. My essence, my Atma here, Atma is referring to his own essence. Divyahi Atma Vibhuteyaha, my imminent divine glories. Pradhanyataha. So this is the word that I was saying. Now Krishna, knows that he's in everything, and there's what, not millions, trillions, how many ever types of materials that are there in the world. Okay, there are so many. All of them is nothing but Ishvara. But he's saying, I will take among them the most prominent ones. Okay, Pradhanyata, most prominent ones. And I will explain to you in Vistara, Vistarasya, in detail, I will explain, because there are just absolutely too many of them. And if I were to start, Krishna is saying probably if I were to start this job of really explaining a manifestation in and through everything, it will take forever. And guess what? We don't have the time that much of time in this world, because the war has to be finished, oh Arjuna. We have to do that, and that is why I will actually take the most important ones for to explain to you my own manifestation. And through this manifestation, oh Arjuna, you can actually focus your mind on that manifestations, because that is what Arjuna's question was in the 17th shloka. He says, so tell me how are you manifested, and tell me how I can keep that in mind even as I am acting in the world. And again, Arjuna is saying from his own standpoint, because he was a soldier, he has to fight. But in and through every action, how can I keep in mind that Krishna, it is you alone, Ishvara, you're the one who is there in everything. So, and then now coming to shloka number 20, Arjuna, Krishna addresses Arjuna as a very nice word. Now you see all these words. Last time, I think we talked about Janardana, where Krishna is addressed as Janardana. Now here, Arjuna actually uses a very nice word, or Krishna uses for Arjuna, the word Gudakesha. And so let's see that one. Ahamatma Gudakesha. Ahamatma Gudakesha. Sarvabhutashayasthitaha. Sarvabhutashayasthitaha. Ahamadishcha madhyam cha. Ahamadishcha madhyam cha. Bhutanam anta eva cha. Bhutanam eva Bhutanam anta eva cha. So now you see from shloka number 20 almost, he starts to explain the 71 or 72 vibhutis, his own glories. But again, by now you would have seen the pattern in which Krishna is explaining from, he always starts with at a very, very high level. And he then, because again, he believes that Arjuna is one of his most one of his most favorite disciples, who can actually understand things just like that, who's very sharp. So when Arjuna asks this question, what form shall I use in my meditation? Again, this is a shloka number 17. What form shall I use in my meditation so that I will most definitely come to you? So that is the question he's asking. So because this is a question connected to meditation, so Krishna starts to explain, so he says, Arjuna, you don't have to go too far. I'm right there. I'm already seated in your heart. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhuta Ashaya Stitaha. Okay, in all beings, I'm actually seated in your heart. So you don't have to go too far. I'm that close to you. And since I'm already there, you don't have to go any distance at all. So in other words, I think he's trying to say that, you can either use my form, in fact, it was so beautiful because of Krishna Jayanti in all the streets, I was in Chennai last week. There's so many, and pretty soon this will happen with Ganesh Chaturthi also. And all the streets, beautiful, so many Krishna idols, everywhere. So Krishna is saying you can use that form of Krishna as you know. But if you wish to choose one of my own vibhutis, one of my own glories, for which I'm about to describe, he says that is also okay. After all, this entire creation is my vibhuti alone, but I'm right there in your own mind. So that is what he's trying to say. Let us look at this a little more closer, because the word self is being used. Aham Atma Gudakesha. Okay, so what do we mean by here when he's saying self? What do you think? So maybe another way to look at it is, what is he not trying to say? Or how do we understand this self? I am the self. Oh, Gudakesha, he's saying. Gudakesha is referring to Arjuna, another word, and we will analyze that word also. So I am the self seated in the hearts of all beings. I'm the beginning, the middle, and also the end. So we'll come to that second part of it. This verse is actually a little loaded, After this, from here on, when we start to explain about the Puranic stories and everything, that is a little different. But here he's saying, I am the self. What do we mean by I am the self?
Arvam,
Yes.
so I'm the self, which means I'm the Atma. So, like in each being, uh, what we call is, the Atma, and then from the universal point of view, or from the God's point of view, it's called Paramatma.
Mm-hmm.
So, by mentioning, that he is the Atma, uh, like the Jiva is no other than like a part of him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way of looking at is looking at the ocean, and then the Atma can be compared as a drop of water,
Mm-hmm.
and whereas the Paramatma, or the totality, can be compared as ocean.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Very. You've already gone into the depth of what we meant by Atma. You're right. Atma or Atman, and part of the whole universe, which we call as Brahman or Paramatman, Para Atman, right? So that's where you're saying that. But it is also goes into the crux of who we think we are, right? Today we act in this world as this individual jivas. But if you look at this individual jivas as actually nothing but a manifestation of that Paramatman, each one of our jivas are part of this whole creation, and this whole creation is nothing but the manifestation or the material cause of that Lord, right? So, in and through all of us, we are that Atman. And I guess even before we come to explain who we are, let us, in a very, very simple example, try to understand what we are not. And then when we come back to, when we know who we are not, then we'll be able to better even understand who we are. So, for example, we tend to today in this world. So, when I explain that we are all individual jivas, when we act in the world, we always, what do we do? We always say, for example, I take this cup, right? So I say, I take this cup. So I tend to kind of objectify this cup in my hand, and I say that, I, who am the subject, and I take this cup as something outside me. So too, for example, let us say, if I'm now going to a restaurant or something to eat or something, and let us say, if we are going Dutch in how we are going to pay, what do? We say, okay, I take care of my bill, you take care of your bill, right? So we bring about the sense of separation in anything and everything we do, whether it is with objects, whether it is with people, and etc. Now, with people who are outside us, acquaintances, those kind of thing. But let us say, if I'm going with my family for that same dinner, okay, what do? I don't even think twice. I automatically pay the bill, everything for everybody myself. So I have now expanded my own self to my family around me, and I've considered them as nothing but me and me alone, right? So I do not bring about that separation. I do not bring about this subject-object relationship with the cup. I do not bring this difference between me and somebody else, right? So Krishna is saying that, that self in you which you have been able to expand yourself without even thinking that separation, keep in mind that that is the true essence of who you are, okay? Which is independent of any kind of judgment, any kind of division, all that. So that is that ultimate essence in each one of us. And again, the examples that I've given before too, where gold is the essence of all the bangles and a bangle and the chain and everything. So this is the essence. So he's trying to bring that aspect, aham atma. So I am that self. I am that self in each and every one of you. In each. So I'm that self. I'm everything else is just nama rupa. So I am that particular essence in each one of in each and every one of you. And I guess one may ask, why do I need to know this aspect of it? And the reason is, he says, by coming to that essence of who you are, now you can actually, and this is where I was saying, about how when we look at these vibhutis, we need to make sure this vibhutis really makes practical sense for us also. So what is a practical implication here? It is essentially by understanding that I am not this physical self. Of course, I need the physical self to transact in this world, but I am that absolute self. And this slowly and slowly starts to um, uh, uh, lessen the separation that I have between me and somebody else. So I slowly drop this I-ness, that is I-ness, this is who I am, I and minus. I am taking my cup to drink, right? So I drop this automatically self. So there is, when I drop that sense of I-ness and minus, immediately I start to develop the sense of connectivity, the sense of, expansion of myself. So, and then slowly and slowly, I start to realize that whatever I'm doing ultimately is that I'm only an instrument in the hands of that Lord. So it is ultimately Ishvara's will that is actually acting through each and every one of us in whatever we are doing. So you see how powerful that sentence then becomes, because when I start to think about, and this is again not through, this is purely by logic that I understand that I am nothing but one being, a creation of that Ishvara. And immediately all my worries, all my anxieties disappears, because that I who's worrying is no longer there. That is, that Sunitha who I think is worrying is not there, but it is that Atma. That is the beauty of what the shloka is really trying to say. So if I'm not even able to understand that that's I who is within myself, is that nothing but Ishvara? So, if I'm not able to understand that, now he comes to, in the rest of the shlokas, to explain more about more tangible things that we can think about Ishvara. So this shloka is at a very high level. It is also the vibhuti, aham atma gudakesha. So he's bringing the very first vibhuti to be explained, that he is that individual self who is seated in each and every being, because of which I'm functioning. Like, for example, whenever we say, oh, isn't that, what is life? We say we are functioning because of this life in me. But in and through that life, what is that essence? That is that fundamental Ishvara, Aham Atma Gudakesha, that Atma. So, going back to what Anand mentioned earlier, it is that relationship between the water and the waves, the drop, the bubble, the froth, the foam, all that individual thing is that. So just like how the entire ocean, that is the ocean that creates and sustains all these waves. So too, if I look at ultimately this entire world is nothing but that Ishvara, and that self is nothing but is reflected, or that self is the essence in each one of us, and who are all of us, we are nothing but a reflection of that glory of, or that vibhuti of Ishvara. So that is the thing that he's trying to show here. So as I mentioned, the first of the 72 vibhuti is that essence, or the Chaitanya Swarupa, which is the subtlest and the highest order of reality. And this is where he's starting off. And he will actually end with, so here, when we say Sat, Chit, Ananda, so he's starting off to show the Chit aspect. That is a part which is shown here. And he will end actually with the last vibhuti, which is the Sat principle. And this is again trying to show that, the very fact that I'm alive, as I said earlier, I have life. When I say I have life, I'm alive. All this is because of this aspect of Chit. And that Chit is what he says, Aham Atma Gudakesha. And as I said, the last vibhuti, he will end with the Sat part of it, Satchitananda Sat, which is the existence part of it. The existence, for example, when I say, this cup is, so the isness of this cup is the Sat principle. So that part of it, he will actually talk about it. So, so these are kind of the two main glories, if you will, the starting and the finishing, which is the Sat, and the Chit, he will talk about it. And coming to the word Gudakesha. Gudakesha is somebody, in a very simple form, is somebody who has actually conquered sleep, so he refers to Arjuna as Gudakesha. And why does he say that? Because he definitely believes that Arjuna is an extremely, is a very advanced student. And he's the one who's capable of really understanding the philosophy of life in such a short time of that war within that 18 chapters with a sharp. So he has a very subtle intellect, very sharp. And with that intelligence, you can really understand whatever he's saying. So so basically, he's giving him a title of Gudakesha, meaning one who's so very sattvic. Gudaka basically means tamoguna. Tamoguna is the worst of all the three gunas, right? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And tamoguna, in what are the qualities of it is, procrastination, laziness, And again, sleep, not the way we say we need 8 hours sleep. That's not the kind of sleep you're talking about, but somebody who is asleep to the world, who really doesn't see, who looks at everything from a very kind of jaundiced eye, right? So that is the tamoguna or nidra or a dull intellect. That dull intellect is what we call this as gudaka. And ishaha means a master. So the conqueror. So one who has conquered that dullness, the one who has conquered that tamoguna, and one who is very, very sattvic, that is who he's referring to as Arjuna. So Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, you are looking at me, you've understood everything, because in the last, the shlokas from 11 to 18, Arjuna has articulated everything that Krishna was trying to tell him prior to that. So that is why he calls him as Gudakesha. And then Sarva Bhutashayastitham Mam, So Arjuna has understood about Krishna's nature, about that consciousness. And so he says, where do I really lie? Where do I reside? So I am there in the mind of every living being. Sarva Bhuta. Bhuta means living. Sarva Bhuta, I am there. Ashaya means mind. Sthitaha means I'm abiding, I'm residing, I'm dwelling. Okay, so I'm there in all living beings, whether it's plants, animals, human beings. Therefore, in my mind also, in your mind also, Atma, Lord Krishna is there in the form of Atma. And who is that Atma? Atma is that Sakshi Bhava, that witness consciousness. And what does it do? It actually witnesses all these presence of thoughts. It also witnesses the absence of thoughts. So whenever I say that, I'm aware of my thought, I'm aware that I'm saying this, all that, that is that witness principle, because of whom I'm able to say that. So, and sometimes when we say my mind is blank, what does that mean? So that blankness is also an awareness. It's because of that awareness I'm even able to say that my mind is blank, right? So it is all because of that chit, that Chaitanya Swarupa. So so that is who I am. So that is my highest vibhuti, sarva bhuta shaya stita. So this is the first glory. So uh, I wanted to spend that time to make sure we understand that aspect. There is still the second line, which we have to understand. And the second line is also a little more in depth. We'll go to it. And from there on, of course, we will go to Shloka 21. And I had prepared a few more, but I think the time's up. We will discuss that next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Stop the recording.